Hello again. Today we're going to take a look at multiplying fractions that are positive and negative. So again, we're going to have to remember our rules for multiplying integers as well as our rules when we multiply fractions. So I'm going to review our fraction rules. When we're multiplying fractions, we like this because we don't need a common denominator. We multiply the tops or the numerators, then we multiply the bottoms or the denominators, and we reduce our answer. You'll also remember I showed you last year that you can pre-reduce. You can reduce before you do your multiplication to make it easier on yourself and multiply smaller numbers. I'll review that in our examples, all right, as well as our rules for multiplying integers. But if you need to, you can go back and you can rewatch those videos. So we're just going to do about 5 of these problems. Nothing too complex here. As we do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remind you how to pre-reduce. When we're multiplying, and this only works when we're multiplying the fractions, we can reduce tops and bottoms even if they're not in the same fraction. So for example, here 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 8 4 times. So I'm crossing it out and I'm rewriting it. I can only reduce tops to bottoms, okay? Don't try to do it bottom to bottom. Nothing else in here will reduce. Now I could have done my multiplication first and then reduced, and I'll go back and I'll show you how that works. So here I notice I have 2 negative signs. We'll recall if there's an even number of negative signs, my answer is positive. So my answer here is going to be positive. So 3 times 1 is 3, 4 times 8 is 32, and this is already reduced for us now. All right. Now, if I hadn't reduced first, let me rewrite the problem, that would work as well. If I don't reduce it first, I wind up with 6 64ths. But what you'll notice is that both of those are divisible by 2, so then when I reduce it, it still reduces to 3 32nds. The only difference you'll notice is now I'm dealing with smaller numbers in my multiplication, so it makes it a little easier if I pre-reduce. You can do it either way, I just like to reduce early. Especially like in this problem here, I don't know what 21 times 8 is. I do know what 3 times 8 is, which is why we're going to reduce. 7 goes into 7 once. 7 goes into 21 3 times. I'll also notice I've got a 2 and an 8. 2 goes into 2 once. 2 goes into 8 4 times. So I'm reducing my numbers down. Now I'm multiplying really simple numbers together. So I'm going to do my multiplication. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 4 is 12. I have 1 negative sign. If you recall, if there's an odd number of negative signs, my answer becomes negative. So negative 112. Again, you could have multiplied the larger numbers and then reduced, but I like to do it this way because I could do that all in my head. 21 times 8, I could do in my head, but I'm lazy and I don't like to. So here you'll recall if we have a whole number, how do we change whole numbers into fractions? We simply write them over 1. So here I have 5/6 times 30 over 1. We just want to write that there so that we're making sure we're multiplying the right numbers together. Again, I notice I can pre-reduce. 6 goes into 6 once, and 6 goes into 30 5 times. The other thing I notice, this is a negative, sorry, let me make sure I copy my signs over. If we don't keep our signs there, we can get confused. I notice that it's going to be over 1. Anything over 1 is a whole number, so I'm not going to bother writing it over 1. I'm just going to write the top numbers, which is 5 times 5, which is 25. I have 1 negative, so my answer is negative 25. So again, if you had 25 over 1, that's fine, but then you want to reduce it and rewrite it, so I would just write it as negative 25. Okay? Here you'll notice we have mixed numbers. The thing to remember when we're multiplying mixed numbers is that you have to change them into their improper form. You have to. You have to change them. You can't do it any other way. Without it being incredibly confusing, because you'll leave parts out. So the big common error here is kids want to multiply the whole numbers and then multiply the fractions. You can't do that. You absolutely have to, yes, I'm going to say it again, change it into an improper fraction, okay? There's no other way to do it. Change it into its improper form. So if you'll recall, I showed you before, it's that, we call it the dead face. He's got an X here and a plus up here. Let me erase my number just so that doesn't get in the way. We multiply these two numbers. 5 times 4 is 20. Then we add that top number, which is 23. We keep our denominator. 23 fifths times 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. 9 Sadly, I do not see anything that's going to cancel out in this one, so we're going to be dealing with kind of bigger numbers. I'm going to do the bottom first. Why? Because that's nice and easy for me. 5 times 2 is 10. 23 times 9, I need to stop and think about. It's 207. All right, and then we can convert this back into its mixed number form, which would be 20 and 7/10. All right, and again, remember when you're doing that, basically I'm looking at how many times will 10 go into 207. It'll go in 20 times with 7 left over. The 7 stays over 10. Okay, those are things we've talked about. We should know how to do that. I'm going to erase my little scratch here so it doesn't get mixed up with this problem. All right, here again I'm multiplying. I have a positive and a negative, so my answer is going to be negative. I'm dealing with mixed numbers, which means I absolutely have to change them into improper fractions first. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. So I have 7 halves. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3 halves. And again, you'll notice there's nothing here that's going to reduce, so we'll just do our multiplication. 7 times 3 is 21. 2 times 2 is 4. And then if I want to convert this back into its mixed number form, 4 will go into 20. 4 times 5 is 20 with 1 left over, so 5 and 1/4 would be its mixed number form. Then remember I told you we have 1 negative, so our answer is negative. You have to make sure you're paying attention to your signs and you're not forgetting signs, because on quizzes and tests, if you don't have a proper sign, unfortunately the answer is wrong. So make sure you're paying attention to the signs as well. Again, if you have questions, you can post them in the comments. You can email me. I'll go over them tomorrow. You guys have a great night.